What's up, everyone? Haven't done one of these competitive games in a while, so hopefully those more competitive ones of you among you viewers will be interested. This is HB Semi-Fast Advance up against Andromeda multi-threading data sucker. Now, my opening hand consists of 4 ice, which is probably an instant keep, especially when 3 of them are small ice. 2 next silvers and an architect. So I would be placing 3 of them on the centrals to defend against Dirty Laundry and Desperado early on, which is always a good idea against Andromeda. Now, what is the idea of this deck? I'm playing next ice, an ice sweep which has been written off by so many top tier players simply because of the prevalence of Parasite Recursion, which is a very fair point. Parasite Recursion absolutely destroys next ice. The biggest weakness is that a smart runner would simply parasite all the next silvers down, leaving next bronze to stand. With Mother Goddess, there will only be a maximum of 4 next bronzes on the board. 4 strength next bronzes on the board, which are easily dealt with. 4 strength next bronze is basically an IQ that can be easily passed through by York, Gordian Blade, Sai, whatever you name it. Next bronze isn't too much of a threat. The problem is next silver compounding the issue, because it costs a lot of money to break next silvers, no matter what you are, without parasites. So my solution to that is a clickless installation of next silver for free via the 3 cards on the left, which I showed: ABT, Darga's Pet Project, and most of all, team sponsorship. One thing that you might not have noticed when first reading team sponsorship is that you actually ignore the install costs. So you can actually install next silver on top of your 3 or 4 deep R&D or HQ for free while you score an agenda. And this deck always scores 4 agendas, so team sponsorship should come into play sooner or later if the runner doesn't trash it. So here I decide what 3 ice to place. I'm definitely placing the Eli because I drew it mandatorily, but I chose to place Eli on Archives, which could have been a mistake. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to place next silver on the Archives because there's a chance that he might not run Archives. Yeah, and I wanted Architect on HQ because it is generally unexpected to have Architect on HQ. And yeah, another reason I will explain later. So that leaves next silver on R&D, which is pretty fine. Next silver on R&D is my choice because an early next silver does absolutely nothing against Corroder. So R&D being the silver I want to defend the least gets the silver. Alright, so here I trap him with the Architect. Architect is very unexpected on HQ. And what happens with criminals is that they generally pre-install their ferry before running. They will not blind account siphon on HQ. So if they run through HQ with a ferry installed, I get to eat up their ferry with Architect and force them to find another ferry or their mimic before they can even think of siphoning me. And in this case, I got a free Architect off because he did not even install a ferry. So that's to my benefit. He could attempt to siphon me right here, but letting the corp fire off Architect repeatedly is a bad idea. So Architect's essentially an end the run that doesn't end the run. You don't ever really want to let HB fire off Architect. So yeah, his first click was spent security testing my HQ, and I chose to install 2 cards, neither of which are agendas. I installed the silver from HQ, and I installed something from R&D. I forgot what exactly I installed. Jackson Howard. Okay. I wanted Jackson Howard obviously to elevate the agenda flood that I'm having right now. 2 ABTs in my hand. Pretty dangerous. I know I can't score them early. If I score them early, I'm going to leave myself in a very weak position, unable to res any of the R&D or Archives ice, and this will leave me vulnerable to security testing. It could be a mistake to create the remote. Arguably, I should have placed the next silver on HQ instead and leave the remote there, because after looking at what was on R&D, there are no econ assets coming up anytime soon. So I should have kept the number of servers to 3 to limit his options for security testing. But I wanted to do this more because I wanted to force the next silver res, so now I have 1 next silver on the board. So if he does run R&D, I get to res next silver for the second next ice, and slowly but surely these will go out of hand. As the runner, your job is to try to keep the number of next ice on the board to a minimum, especially when you're my opponent, playing without a single parasite or ice destruction method. He's going to be in a lot of trouble. This matchup is very bad for him. He attempts to security test my archives, and obviously I rest the Eli against him. This is bad news because he will get to access R&D, but it's fine. I know there are no agendas on top of R&D right now, having looked through it with Architect, so now resing Eli is fine. And next turn, I can click for credits to res the Eli on R&D. Next silver on R&D, so I can completely stop him. Now, here the right move would usually be to play the team sponsorship in a naked remote and click for 2 credits. But I can't do that, obviously, because he has security testing. So I just click for 3 credits, then this turn I decide to get the team spawn out and click for a credit. So now I have 7 credits. I can easily res both the Turing on the remote and the next silver on R&D for 7 credits. That's fine. Meanwhile, there's an ABT sitting in the remote, the security testing remote right now, and he doesn't know it. I haven't rested it at all. He won't suspect that it's an econ asset because yeah, I was low on credits for most of the time. But now that I get to fire ABT and trigger it, I found 0 ice. But I knew that it was fine no matter what because I can trigger team sponsorship to install Jackson Howard and reshuffle the ice, the agendas back to R&D. The problem is this: he has Mimic, he has siphons me to 0, and now he gets free reign on R&D. And here I make a mistake. I should reshuffle with Jackson instead of letting him run R&D here, because he knows that I placed Jackson in the remote. I should not. He could very well run my Jackson. So he shuts down my Architect on HQ, which kind of hurts. At least it's not a toll booth. I've seen worse before. And since he did not contest my Jackson this turn, I'm just going to overdraw with Jackson and chuck more agendas in archives. Now he does get free reign on R&D because he siphoned me earlier. This siphon is really hurting me, and this is where I really should have sacked my Jackson. I should have sacked it right here. Now that I sack it here, it's too late. He runs third click on my Jackson, forcing the Jackson out, and then he runs R&D to see 2 fresh cards on R&D. So yeah, this is a very huge mistake that cost me an Adonis campaign. I do have an Eve campaign that goes into the silver remote. This is pretty important because if he attempts to siphon me here, I can res the Eve. Although I think I will res the Architect first. We'll see. In the meantime, he gets Sucker out of control, 8 Sucker tokens. So this is another reason why I prefer this Ice Suite. Your Ichis and high strength Ice are not rendered useless with Data Sucker, because the next silvers are the multi-subs are the Ice that are taxing him to oblivion. So here I find a Sensei City Grid, which goes in the remote, and I continue clicking for credits. Meanwhile, I do rest the silver on R&D, which now brings the total number of silvers to 2. Now we are getting somewhere. It's going to be harder for him to contest my servers. I continuously let him to HQ here, because I want to be able to afford the Eve res. I need to get my money engine going, and one of the biggest mistakes you can do is to prioritize centrals over your money, because without money, you are never going to be able to ice up centrals. This is why the siphon was so crippling, and even though the score seems even, 2-2, he's actually very far ahead, because he got multiple security testings in the time I was broke, and got multiple accesses. He trashes my Sensen reflexively, which is a mistake, because then he cannot trash my Eve, which I now res and protect with next bronze. So now I click for 2 credits, I have 4 credits. I still do not intend to rest Ice on HQ because I need to rest the next bronze on the remote, protecting my Eve. I need the Eve to fire off, otherwise I'm not getting anywhere. This is at a cost of security testing. He's getting so many security testing clicks off, it's ridiculous. Maybe I should be trashing security testing, but I know I can achieve a board state where security testing will just be denied. In the meantime, he finds yet another agenda, and this spells worse news for me, and finds another security testing. But my econ stabilizes, and now I can actually protect all my remotes. All my servers. By installing next bronze on HQ, I can now defend team sponsorship, Eve campaign, and HQ for 8 credits, exactly what I have. So here, I keep it out with the Turing. He won't go in. And he has no decoder. The one piece he's missing is his decoder. It's probably a York, and that's going to be tough for him. But he continues hammering R&D, which is the right play here. With an R&D eye, he gets to see a lot of cards, and it only costs him 2 credits each time. The toll booth sitting on R&D is not very good. I'm very afraid that you'll get DRES, especially seeing him using an emergency shutdown earlier on. So what I do here is to trash Toll Booth and install Mother Goddess over it. Big, 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 big mistake. What was I thinking? Oh my gosh, you idiot. Oh my gosh. I want to kill myself. This is the worst thing I could have done. We'll see that later in the game. Probably by far the biggest mistake. It only cost one more credit to not override the Toll Booth, but yet I had to do it. Such a big mistake. Here I draw into Adonis campaign, and at this point I realized I'm not going to score any agendas anytime soon. I don't run Biotic Label in my deck, and there's already one Sansan in the heap. I might not see my second Sansan for a very long time. So why not get more money so I can make a solid remote with Ash or something. I do grab the Adonis, override the team sponsorship, and perhaps I can bait him into running the Turing right here. That would be a victory for me if he spends 3 clicks just to access an Adonis. In the meantime, he continues running Rampant. Between multi-threader and data sucker and security testing, he's actually making 3 credits a click each turn. The Eli on Archives is actually not providing too much resistance, which is bad news. Now I draw into Cyberdeck's Virus Sweep, but I still purge virus counters here. He has way too many sucker counters. I'm going to purge here. Firstly, to prevent him from repeatedly running Archives again and again to get money, but more importantly, instill the fear in him. Make him worried about a next goal possibility. You have to respect the possibility of the next goal, even though I don't run any in this deck. He cannot possibly know. Unfortunately, he finds a Vitruvius, putting him on match point. So now I need to start rushing my agendas before he gets me on R&D. Right now, R&D is very taxing. 4 to get through the next silver, and 3 to get through the next Mother Goddess for 7 credits. But 7 credits isn't too much for a criminal. He can easily break up 7 credits, Hail Mary on R&D, and find his final agenda to win. I am very conscious of that fact, and I know I need to shore up my R&D defenses ASAP, but I'm not drawing to any more next ice. So the next best thing I can do is to rush 7 points before he can react. And I have the perfect agendas to do that. Director Haas Pet Project allows me to recur cards, which will enable me to score my agendas faster. Alternatively, ABT will allow me to search for ice and rest them for free, making it harder for him to lock my R&D. I'll probably attempt to score the pet project first because I have a lot of stuff in archives that I can potentially install. I finally draw the Breaker Bay Grid here, but there's nothing to combo with it. I don't really have much to do now. I have a lot of money right now. I don't have enough ice, any good ice to put on R&D for that matter. So I'm just looking at my heap. I'm wondering to myself, what can I do? I'll probably try to score an agenda this turn, but which agenda should I score? And if I score Pet Project, what am I going to recur with it? I've more or less settled on scoring the Pet Project, but I'm not very sure what to recur. The biggest restriction is that I need to create a new remote and place the stuff in there. I cannot install stuff in the existing remote. So there's a couple of options. I could install team sponsorship in the new remote to make my next beta test better. I could install Sansan in the new remote to allow me to fast advance so that I don't have to worry about him sieging my remotes. Remember, he can easily install a Code Gate Breaker and run my scoring remote to win the game. So Sansan is the safer option. Alternatively, I could create a new scoring remote with Ash, but that's not a very good idea because I feel more secure with the 2 existing remotes. The Adonis remote has Turing, which is very hard to get through. The other remote has a next bronze guarding the next silver, which will be at strength 5 once it's rest, which is equivalent to the Turing. So both of those I feel are very, very safe remotes. But I can't install anything in them from Pet Project, and that's a problem. Cyberdeck's Virus Suite goes in the remote, the scoring remote as well. This is some foreplanning. I do see myself using Cyberdeck's Virus Suite in the near future. I draw into a Toll Booth, and I score Pet Project. I look at my heap one last time to decide what I'm going to install. I could do money. I could install Breaker Bay Grid, Eve Campaign, Toll Booth. That works. I'm almost certainly using the Toll Booth to create my new remote because Architect is very trivial. But this might be a mistake once again. I should have dedicated the Toll Booth to R&D instead of HQ. So here I create a dreaded Ash Toll Booth remote. With Ash Toll Booth, I can almost certainly guarantee he's not going to trash my Sansan grid, allowing me to fast advance at my convenience. The problem now is R&D. It only costs 7 credits to get through R&D. He needs one more agenda of R&D to win. This is my biggest concern. Of course, if he can get through R&D, it also means that he's locking me out of winning agendas, and that I cannot handle. So what I really should have done there was to use Architect on the remote instead of Toll Booth, and save the Toll Booth for R&D. My lack of foresight in this department, it caused me to have a much harder game than I would otherwise have. Of course, my opponent is struggling big time. His security testings are now turned off. Even though he has cleared tags, it's impossible for him to run with security testing properly and get any profit out of it. He's now relying on KD Jones for money. Here he does a Hail Mary on R&D. He has exactly 4 credits on the R&D access, but sees no agendas. Which means I won't get my winning agenda for the next 2 turns, but I do have the ABT in my hand, something to keep note of. Adonis campaign runs out, and I draw into Jackson Howard, which combos perfectly with ABT. This is exactly what I'm looking for right here. He didn't trust the Jackson off R&D because he was too poor, so I'm going to play Shell Game right here. I know that at any point he can install a Code Gate Breaker and go for my remotes, but seeing how many credits he has and seeing that he's loaded on memory right now, I decide that it's very safe for me to Shell Game like this. Install 3 remotes. He cannot possibly guess which one is the ABT. Can you tell? Not knowing what, if you didn't see what I played, can you tell which one's the ABT? It's very hard to tell. And you just cannot gamble as the runner. You can't afford to gamble. Especially not when you know that 2 of the 3 remotes have ice that is incredibly taxing to run through. He picks the remote that seems to have the least taxing ice, but it turns out to be the most taxing because it's the Toll Booth that forces 3 credits out of him. So that's done. He is kept out of my Sansan server, which contains a very innocuous Jackson Howard. I score the ABT here and trigger it. My hope is to find just 1 piece of ice to place on R&D, but no. I find an agenda, Jackson Howard, and Hedge Fund. That lost me the game right there. I was banking on the ABT to secure me the win. I needed any ice at all on R&D. No, I didn't get that. Any ice, doesn't have to be a next ice, any at all. I had, I think, 4 more pieces of ice in my deck of 18 cards. I saw 0 of them. That cost me the game. He won't win from running Archives because I have Jackson installed, but he will win from running R&D here. Because now I can't defend R&D. He locks R&D up. My only hope right now is to res R&D and shuffle my deck after he finishes this run. Hope I top deck a 3-2 so I can fast advance it with Sansan. That's my only hope right now. Of course, I also have to hope that he doesn't hit any agendas at this point. Now, when he encountered the Mother Goddess, I said, wait up, I'm going to res Breaker Bay Grid to res Cyberdex and purge the virus counters. Previously, he could unload 1 circle counter to get past Mother Goddess with a Mimic. By using Cyberdex Virus Suite here, I'm forcing him to get through Mother Goddess via Corroder, i.e. paying 3 credits instead of 1. This makes it harder on him. So now he cannot run through my entire server without running out of credits to steal NAPD. He cannot have that happen. So he does the right thing here, as a good player would, jack out, unload KT, rerun on 3rd click. Of course, he should have unloaded KT before running R&D, but it didn't matter, because eventually he did find the winning Vitruvius, I believe, and that's unfortunate for me. Couple more agendas left in the deck, but, well, that's the way luck has it. You win some, you lose some. As usual, it's very easy to blame Lady Luck for my loss. I was agenda flooded so badly early on. Thankfully, my opponent wasn't able to capitalize on it, but still, seeing agendas that you can't score instead of money that you desperately need didn't help. What made it worse was that I fired off 2 ABTs, which is the equivalent of Ambience Astroscript. Really, Vitruviuses are like bills in the sense that they are useless unless you hyper advance them, and ABTs are like Astroscripts have very high potential to swing the game in your favor. The trouble is, unlike Astroscript, it is not 100% reliable, and it showed this game. Both times I had at least a 50% chance of resing at least 1 piece of ice from ABT, along with protection from either team sponsorship or Jackson Howard. So it was risk free, I did it, and both times they completely whiffed, which caused me to lose the game. Had I res even 1 piece of ice in either ABT, I reckon I'd have a much better shot at winning the game. So that's a very huge pity because ABT is such an integral part of this deck. It really accelerates your game further, just like Astro Script would in NBN. And to have them misfire like that is a huge problem for this deck. So because you do spend resources and time to advance those agendas instead of solidifying your board state, which is really important in HB. So as much as luck was a factor in losing, there are a lot of avenues now that I look back at this game where I could have made better plays, and that's the beauty of this deck. It actually has a much higher skill cap than many other decks because you run cards like the Future Is Now, Team Sponsorship, Director Haas Pet Project. All these cards give you so many options, a vast array of tools at your disposal. Picking the right one for the situation requires much foresight and a lot of gameplay experience. And I clearly did not do that game. Even a simple decision, such as placing toll booths and deciding to override them on R&D, oh my gosh, that was idiotic. Very, very daft of me. I have no idea what I was thinking. That toll booth on R&D would have saved my life. There was no way he was getting back into HQ for an emergency shutdown until he found his Zoo Keymaster, which turned out to be the decoder he was playing. He didn't have the memory to install it. By the time he would find his Dyson mem chip and Zoo to install, he would be very far behind. That Turbo for R&D should have been there. I would have been able to resonate late game, and I could have top decked the Vitruvius later on to score. Looking back, that would have happened if I had a Turbo there. Director Haas Pet Project. It seemed like the right decision to do what I did. Toll Booth, Ash, Sense and City Grid makes a lot of sense. Can't go wrong with that. But there was a better play. What I should have done was to install Toll Booth, Sansan, and instead of Ash, Team Sponsorship. Because I knew I had an ABT in my hand that I probably could score next turn without even needing the Sense and City Grid. The only reason I needed Sense and City Grid was to score the final agenda that would be top deck of R&D. I knew I could go for without a code with my code gates being good for a couple more turns. So what I should have done was to res Team Sponsorship instead, because Team Sponsorship will allow you to install cards in other servers, unlike Pet Project, which requires you to make a new server. So I should have installed Team Sponsorship instead of Ash. Then attempt to score ABT in the following turn. When that happens, I can use Team Sponsorship to recur Ash on R&D, or an Ice on R&D. Either way, both will have secured my R&D and set me up to score my final agenda on the Sansan that was on the Team Sponsorship when I top deck the winning agenda. So this is foresight. This is called foresight, and I clearly lack it because I don't have enough experience with this deck. Another key possibility, one which I don't leverage on often enough, which is why I'm a way better runner than I am a corp, is to play Cyberdex on R&D, simply to feign an upgrade that could possibly be Caprice or Ash. That would deter him from making a run on R&D until he has at least 3 credits to deal with the Ash and possibly credits to beat the Ash trace as well. This would change his aggressiveness and would probably have done me better in winning the game. Even a subtle play like that could have made a lot of difference that game. I'm quite sad that it didn't play out that way. I really should have tried. Well, let's see some other statistics of the game. These are the stats, some notable stats. My opponent, Andromeda, activated Desperado 23 times. That's a lot. Against HB, you shouldn't expect criminals to be making that many runs. It means that you probably lost the game. Why was this the case? Because I allowed him to run over me on the turn that he siphoned me. That was a huge swing. One that was very crippling to me and one that allowed him to speed up for the rest of the game. It was on turn 7 where I got siphoned. You see the blue line, that's my credit pool. It went all the way down to 0. It meant that I had to click for credits for the next 3 turns, which really slowed me down and rendered me unable to defend my remote server and most importantly R&D. From there, he was able to security test multiple times, gaining very steady credit gain over the course of 3 turns, and acceded lots of R&D accesses with R&D-I. So while I eventually did manage to recover and even overpower him towards the end, this was fundamentally a very crippling period for me during the game. It shouldn't have happened. I should have been able to defend against that, partially because the AB team misfired, but also because I was too hasty in running ABT and I paid the price. Because of his credit lead at turn 10, which was his credit peak, he was able to sustain himself for the rest of the game. At around this point, he started setting up KT, and hence was able to make the big R&D runs later on in the final turns to close out the game. Notice that when we ended at turn 18, if he hadn't found the winning agenda, he would have been in a very tough spot. His KT was completely unloaded, he had no security testing avenues, and I had more than enough credits to keep him out of any server for the rest of the game. Too bad it didn't play out that way. That's how it is. So yeah, that's all I have. Hope you found this game interesting. I certainly have learned a lot from it, but hopefully the most important thing is to play better next time. We'll see if I can do that. In the meantime, thanks for watching Happy Net Running. Goodbye.